Has the left abandoned Elizabeth Warren? And candidate Yang has made the debate stage as the only person of color there. And also MSNBC is at it again. I think we say that every single
Indeed. Evergreen comment. Joining us via Skype to discuss all of this is Katie Halper, host of The Katie Halper Show and co-host of Useful Idiots, a Rolling Stone podcast that I highly recommend. Great to see you as always, Katie.
Thanks, you guys too.
Hey, Katie.
All right, so let's start with my old friends at MSNBC. They have a special relationship with Bernie Sanders. And this is, you know, every once in a while they make it like a little extra egregious, and this is one of those cases. So they had a panel. They invited 2 former Hillary aides on to bash Bernie for how long it took him to get out of the race and how he never really supported Hillary Clinton. Let's take a listen.
Adrienne, you first.
Yeah, look, Alex, I'm really glad that she made this point because it did take Bernie Sanders a long time to endorse Hillary Clinton. It took him a long time to get out of the race, and it also took him a long time to actually go out and campaign for us. And I think the point that she's making is, you know, no matter what happens in 2020, I do hope that Bernie Sanders, if he's not the nominee, will endorse whomever the nominee is. I'm glad she made that point.
Philippe?
Well, don't forget that she's been on both sides of this. Hillary was the nominee in 2016, and the only people in hindsight who think that Bernie did a lot for her or enough for her is Bernie and his supporters. But she also lost in 2008 to Barack Obama in a far more difficult race that went wire to wire.
All right, Katie. Memory's running a little short there.
Yeah, really short. So 2 things. One is, as you guys know and you guys commented on, this follows the Hillary Clinton interview with Howard Stern, where she talked about how he hurt her and wants him to be retired and hopes that he'll endorse whatever candidate wins, meaning he won't win. So don't worry, Hillary. Bernie Sanders will endorse himself because he'll be the nominee. And my favorite, really quickly, I just want to give Hillary and Howard Stern a shout out for making a joke about how Bernie wants to give kids free chocolate milk because it was such a great self-parody of out of touch, extremely wealthy people making fun of child hunger. Anyway,
yeah,
so
the whole thing was gross.
It was so gross. But in terms of the claim that, first of all, I want to also commend MSNBC because out of a panel of 3, they only had 2 Hillary Clintonites. They could have had 3. It could have been 100% Clinton. So I think that for the restraint that they used, I'm sure it was painful for them not to put a 3rd one on there.
You forgot to count the host, Katie. You forgot to count the host
of
the show.
Right. Well, that goes without say, right? Yeah, and it was a biased panel because it was a weekday, or actually, it's Alex maybe weekend, so that joke didn't work. But I think that something that's great is the total revisionism. I actually made a video of this. People can check it out on my Twitter, but about Hillary's revisionism. And the idea that Bernie didn't do a lot for Hillary, as Thomas is online tweeted, HRC did 13 public events and 3 big dollar fundraisers for Obama in 2008. Bernie did 41 public events for Hillary Clinton. And Hillary Clinton also, when she was running against Obama, was asked specifically if she bought the party unity stuff. And she said she didn't. And the reason she didn't was because her husband didn't get the nomination until June. Bill Clinton, of course, we're talking about. And as she said, in June, we all remember what happened in June to Bobby Kennedy. So her line was, I'm not going to talk out of the race because Obama could get shot in the head and killed.
Yeah, I remember she had to apologize for that. I mean, what a comment. But we should also talk. Yeah,
he'd be really embarrassed, honestly.
Right.
He should just. He won't be because he basically was lying on national television.
That's okay.
But that's his
I don't think being embarrassed is really a thing for him.
Oh.
I envy him that.
Yeah. I actually do wish I had what he had. All right, so we also got to talk about this. This was one of my favorite moments, which is that all of the people who screamed when Kamala Harris dropped out of the race because all these white men on the stage, internalized patriarchal racism. Andrew Yang, an Asian American, made the debate stage to crickets because he does not toe, Katie, the neoliberal party line.
Right, exactly, and it's not useful to kind of hide their ideology behind his identity and weaponize identity politics. And of course, as I always say, representation is important. And all things being equal, if we had candidates that had the same exact policies and politics and kind of fight and movement, I would say, yeah, we should go with someone who's of color. We should go with a woman. But it really reveals the fact that is a weapon in this case, and it's not about identity for a lot of people, because if it were, then they would be celebrating the fact that Yang is in, as you said.
Right.
And someone actually tweeted that, like, I think someone tweeted that with Kamala Harris gone, there's no more Asian American people in the race, which is, and she is half Indian, half black, which is important. But it was kind of like, okay, there is Andrew Yang.
There's a guy named Andrew Yang.
Is a person who exists.
And I just want to give a little shout out to myself. Because we got Yang on Useful Idiots. Matt Taibbi and I got Yang on Useful Idiots, Andrew Yang. And I think that may be a big factor in his success. He got the Useful Idiots podcast.
That's true.
That's a great
Useful Idiots podcast, and then he made the debate. Is it a correlation?
I don't think you could say. I don't think you could say those things aren't connected. I think they're directly correlated. There's just no other conclusion you can come to, honestly.
Yeah,
and I do also want to say, look, there's also another woman of color still in the race, in Tulsi Gabbard, but she never gets talked. They despise and loathe her.
Yeah, they're like with Yang, they ignore him. With Tulsi, they vilify her and they really smear her. And yeah, her Putinism and Assadism, which they like to talk about, I guess, trump her identity. Yeah. To make her a straight white man or something.
But it does, I think the way you said it is so well put, that they don't actually care about representation. No. They care about hiding an odious ideology behind identity. That's really what's going on. So at the same time, I just thought this was funny. Politico did a big write-up about how, this was their title, how the cool kids of the left turned on Elizabeth Warren. And they are talking about our friends over at Jacobin magazine. First of all, I want to know who they paid to get Politico to call them cool kids.
Cool kids, yeah, I know.
Having met some of these people, I'm like, cool? Really?
I know.
It's not the first word that comes to mind.
Yeah,
said with love.
Journalist has bad cool dar, I think we can say. And you know, it's funny. I've had a bunch of Jacobin writers on my show, and one of them is Liza Featherstone, who wrote a really great piece called "Warren is not Bernie, but it's not Sanders, but she's also not Hillary Clinton," which has a very nuanced view of the differences.
I read that one.
Between,
it was good.
Yeah. And so Liza is cool, though. I have to give her credit. Liza stands out as one of the cool. She's very.
I think the key part there, Katie, is that they think that they just can't understand the differences between Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. Or I think really what it is they can't understand populism at all. Zero. Because I saw this under Trump as well, as they just can't separate like working class politics from itself, and that there are a lot of nuances and debates within this community. And so like, oh, she lost Elizabeth Warren. I mean, if you ask me, again, from the right, I'm looking at this, I don't think that she ever had cachet within that movement. And yet, they're like, oh, they lost Elizabeth Warren because they're attacking her. I mean, really it is, if you're familiar with these types of politics, of course you wouldn't be supporting her. It's so self-evident to me. But it's just that they never even took the time to familiarize themselves with that type of rhetoric. That's really what I think it is.
Well, yeah, they look at the left and they just like homogenize it, right? Like anyone to the left of Hillary Clinton, let's say, or Pete or Mayor Pete, is the same. And there are, as you said, there are important differences, there are important nuances. And I mean, I'm someone who thinks that I like Warren after Sanders. She's probably the person I like the most. And yet I also think there are important differences. And I also, one of the big things is I think Sanders is so much more electable in a race against Trump than Warren is. I just think that the style, I think that, she doesn't have the good political instincts. We saw that with the Native American debacle. And I think Trump will like troll her really hard.
Well, you just look at who has crossover support. He does and she doesn't.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the bottom line. But if you said that to them, like their heads would explode. They would never wrap their head around that. But but
and,
I also
and
think
we're misogynist, self-loathing. Self-loathing, Krystal, for saying that.
Of course, yes, of course, obviously. But I also think that it's funny because on some level, they do get that they're different because they get in their own heart that they like Elizabeth Warren and they hate Bernie Sanders.
That's true.
So, but they can't like turn it around to see how anyone could look at. They can kind of understand how you might feel the same about them, but then she's a woman, so you got to pick the woman. They can't understand how you could turn it around and actually actively prefer Bernie Sanders over Elizabeth Warren for reasons that are substantive, not just based on like gender identity.
We saw this with the AOC endorsement in particular, when they were like, how could you not endorse women because they're both basically the same? And she's like, what are you talking about? Like, it's just not, it's just not accurate. They can't understand. Right. I think they just can't understand coalitional politics. I really believe that.
I think there are two things that happen. One is that, like you said, people really look at the identity, and I think there's some people who are like honest and not cynical, and they think it's really time for a woman. And I respect that. I disagree with how they're prioritizing policy and identity, and also electability and identity. But then you have dishonest people who, like you're saying, actually do prefer her politics. And then they have to pretend that there's no difference, because in order to show the difference, they would be exposing that he's more progressive than she is.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, anyway. I think that's what it is. All right, Katie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Katie.
Appreciate it.
Always great to see you.
Bye. We'll have more Rising for you right after this.